"Surely," Cotta said, "you haven't forgotten what I said at the beginning of our discussion, that it is much easier for me, especially in matters such as these, to talk about what I disbelieve rather than what I believe. But even if I had something definite to say, I would much rather listen to you in your turn, especially since I've already spoken at length." Then Balbus replied, "Very well, I will do as you ask as briefly as I can. Since the errors of the Epicureans have already been refuted at length, I can omit much of what I was planning to say. In general, we Stoics divide the whole question of the immortal gods into 4 parts. First, we teach that they exist. Second, we discuss their nature. Third, we show how they govern the universe. And finally, we describe how they care about human affairs. In this present discussion, I think we should focus on the first 2 points, and leave aside the latter 2 for another time, since they are so vast." "I disagree," said Cotta, "for we have plenty of time, and are concerned about questions so important that they should take precedence over any other business." "Very well," said Balbus. "It seems to me that the first point, that the gods exist, scarcely needs discussing, for what could be more clear and obvious when we gaze at the sky and contemplate the heavens, than that there is some divine power of surpassing intelligence which rules over this realm? If this weren't true, how is it that everyone approves of the world of Ennius when he says, 'Look up at the shining firmament, which all call on as Jupiter,' and not only as the god Jupiter, but as Lord of the universe, a present and mighty god who rules everything by his command, as Ennius calls him, the father of gods and men? I can hardly imagine how anyone doubts this. If so, they might as well doubt the existence of the sun. For how is the sun's existence more obvious than that of God? If this idea of the divine was not so clearly known and planted in our minds, would it have endured and become stronger as the centuries passed? How could it have become more steadfast with every succeeding age and generation of humanity? We see that other vain and false beliefs have passed away with time. Who now believes that hippocentaurs or the chimera ever existed? Is there any ignorant old woman left who still believes in the monsters of the underworld, which people once feared? Time erases false beliefs, but confirms the judgments of nature. The result is that among our own people, as with others, the worship of the gods and the observance of sacred rites grow stronger and more perfect as time passes. This doesn't happen randomly, nor by chance, but because the gods themselves often make their power known to us. For example, in our war with the Latin League at Lake Regillus, when the dictator Aulus Postumius was battling Octavius Mamilius of Tusculum, Castor and Pollux appeared on horseback on the front lines with our soldiers. More recently, these divine sons of Tyndareus appeared to announce the defeat of Perses. Publius Vertinius, the grandfather of our young contemporary, was travelling to Rome by night from his magistracy at Reate, when 2 young men dressed in white told him that Perses had been captured that very day. When Vertinius announced this to the Senate, he was thrown into jail for making reckless claims about state business. But afterward a letter arrived from Aemilius Paulus, confirming victory on that very day, so that the Senate gave Vertinius a grant of public land and special privileges. As another example, when the Locrians soundly defeated the army of the Crotons at the Sagra River, the outcome of the battle, it is said, was heard at the games in Olympia on that same day. Oftentimes voices of fauns have been heard, and apparitions of the gods have been seen, so that anyone who is not a fool or impious would have to admit that the gods were present. Then there is the evidence of prophecies and premonitions of things to come. These are proof that the future is being revealed, shown, portended, and foretold to humanity. Thus they are called revelations, signs, portents, and predictions. Even if we believe the ancient stories of Mopsus, Tiresias, Amphiaraus, Calchas, and Helenus are mere fictions and fables, although their powers would not have been recognized in fiction unless they had some foundation in fact, will we, as learned men, dismiss evidence of divine powers, if it is from our own recent history? Won't we learn from the outrageous behavior